warm welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. Anything and everything to do with the life of an entrepreneur covered right here on the show. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On the show today, we're bringing you the VP, India and Nepal, Emirates, Jabr Al-Azeeby. On the other side of a break, Harsh Roongta of Fee Only Investment Advisors. I want to start by first talking about the massive repatriation efforts that you undertook during the pandemic. What could you tell us about that?
Thank you for having us in your program. If we're going to go over a year back, and when January 2020, the COVID spread was detected, we usually start by activating our emergency response team, and that happened in January. We have been speaking to the health authorities worldwide, the local authorities, to understand how serious was Corona at that time. And we start gathering information and monitoring thoroughly until in March, when Dubai Civil Aviation have asked us to suspend our flights. And that's when we had to figure other ways and means to help our stranded passengers worldwide to go back home. And that's how we worked with the local authorities to put the best measures for safety of the passengers to travel back, and of course to get the regulatories worldwide to accept the safety measure we are putting in to bring back their citizens. We have been talking to embassies, we've been talking to civil aviations worldwide, and we managed to repatriate as much as we can. Between March and September, I think the number is around 700 repatriation flights. We had to put a lot of measures, such as wearing the PPEs for the passengers and the cabin crew. The hygiene kits are being given, the sanitization that had to happen on every landing and takeoff, and of course transportation some of these passengers too. So for God will, we managed and we are still continuing doing that. When it comes to India especially, which we managed by my team, the repatriation was in coordinations with the local authorities in Dubai, the Indian embassy in Abu Dhabi, and the consulate in Dubai, to get the list of stranded passengers in Dubai. And some of them, they wanted to actually go back home. They were residents in Dubai. So we managed with all the coordination and help of the authorities locally to do a good number of repatriation and take some of the stranded passengers back home.
I want to talk about the Emirates Sky Cargo passenger freight operations, something that has just completed a year. You launched it, of course, just days into the pandemic, an innovation that had you thinking on your feet and quickly responding to the challenges that you're seeing around you. What enabled you to really move as quickly as that and to be able to innovate as quickly as that?
If we go back to the point when we were asked to ground our aircrafts and suspend flights, you can imagine the same have happened to several airlines and airports. Considering that most of the cargo worldwide was actually carried on the belly of passenger aircrafts, and that suddenly disappeared, that have disrupted the supply chain worldwide. And we were the first airline to take the risk, use our passenger aircraft to operate only cargo-only flights. And that was mainly because the health authorities worldwide were seeking help to get the essential supplies that is needed at that time, whereas we're considering about hygienes and masks and PPEs, a lot of pharmaceutical medicines that was needed at that time. So we had to be the leaders in that, and we used only the cargo part of our passenger aircraft. The innovation part came when we saw that the demand is high, and the freighter aircrafts were not enough for us. And usually it is the smaller part of the aircraft flying worldwide. So we actually starting safely putting the cargo on our passenger seats, even the overhead cabins, just to make sure that we are achieving the demand that is needed. The third step and the final one was actually to remove the economy seats totally and use it for cargo as a passenger freighter. And we had a name for it internally called mini freighters, which actually were very successful to support the needs of essential goods and especially food too. Considering India is a big supplier of food and medicine at that time, there was a huge operation to India, to the world, and that was much appreciated, by the country in need. There was a lot of PPEs, medicines, syringes, food supply that have been sent on these aircraft, and until today we are doing that.
Another thing that is very unique and is definitely a first in the industry is the fact that you're covering the cost of COVID-19 customers when it comes to their expenses. Why did you decide to do that? What does it mean for a company and a business like you to have undertaken this move?
That was part of several initiatives that we actually introduced, and mainly the main purpose is to bring the confidence to travelers to travel on us and feel safe. Of course, at that time was for the essential travels. And part of these initiatives was free day change, extending the validity of the tickets for 2 years so the passenger doesn't feel that he lost his ticket. And of course, the multi-risk travel insurance that we introduced. That insurance actually was at no cost to the passenger, and it definitely helped and put a lot of confidence to our passenger travel with us. It covers the medical expenses, and God forbid if any of our passengers got the COVID disease at that time, and we continued for a longer period to give that confidence to them. The initiative was very welcome by our passengers, and we saw the confidence coming back slowly.
My last question to you, Emirates Sky Cargo, I understand, became the first air cargo carrier to deliver nearly 50 million doses of COVID-19 vaccinations to more than 50 destinations. Talk to us about that.
That's a milestone that makes us all proud. It's the 220 tons of vaccine or 50 million doses, as you said, that we managed to take it to the needy people worldwide. We have sky cooling facilities in Dubai Airport, which helped us to actually store the vaccines and manage the logistics very well with all the requests and requirements that was coming by our local government or other governments to receive these vaccines. This also is an initiative and a collaboration that worked perfectly with our local entities like Dubai ports, which ships through sea, with the humanitarian city that we have in Dubai, World Trade Center, World Trade Airport, which actually was managing the requirements and the distribution, and of course Sky Cargo to take the air freighter. So if it was not for the teamwork that we had from the local entities, we would not manage that. And it's very much a proud moment that we managed to take these doses to the needed people. And of course, we are working even faster now with the production of doses or production of vaccines are getting faster. And that helps us also to deliver it even faster to the needed countries or regions.
taking the time to speak with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. I want to start today's conversation by talking about risk and reward and the correlation really between the two. It's always seen that equities are more risky and therefore give you a higher rate of return. Anything that you want to tell us, what do you advise your clients when it comes to looking at equities as an asset class? What's the correct way to approach them? Any insights you can give us?
So I think the key thing for people to understand is that risk and reward are two sides of the same coin. Very clearly, when you want high returns, and let's say by risk you mean the risk of losing the nominal value, the so-called value of your capital, if you call that as the risk, and if you want to have zero risk on that, then you have to be satisfied with low returns. I don't think that there is a possibility that you can have zero risk to the value of your money without taking some risk. So if you take State Bank of India fixed deposit rate as zero risk, okay, and that, let us say, is 5% or 5.5%, then if you want a higher return than that, some amount of risk you will have to take. You cannot get that higher return without taking an incremental risk. I think that understanding people need to have. Two things with risk. I think people, when they talk of risk, they just talk of the risk of losing principal. I think the other risk that people rarely look at is the risk of losing the purchasing power of their money. So when you put money in a bank fixed deposit with State Bank of India, let's say for 10 years, and you're getting 5% return on that. Now, from that 5%, first of all, tax will be paid, and let's say it's paid at 30%, which means your return drops to 3.5%. And at the end of 10 years, although nominally your money will grow from whatever it is that you have started with, but the things that you can purchase with that money will be much less than what you could have purchased when you started with. So this so-called low risk products invariably will mean that the purchasing power of your money will be lost over a period of time. That is for sure.
Then let's also discuss equity and SIP. What's the correct way, that you should be looking at SIPs? Do you think there's enough awareness amongst people, amongst young people, especially young entrepreneurs, when it comes to SIP and why they should perhaps be looking at it? Do you feel it's more skewed perhaps towards equity, and how can that be corrected?
I think given the amount of financial education that has been going on, which is very, very good, I think people think that a systematic investment plan in an equity mutual fund is a riskless way of creating wealth. So two things I want to talk about. One, I think people say, I want to do SIP. SIP is only a method of investing. When you regularly invest a fixed amount of money in a bank fixed deposit, it is called a recurring deposit. When you do the same in an equity mutual fund, any mutual fund for that matter, it is colloquially called as a systematic investment plan. You are systematically, month after month, putting money into a mutual fund. I think a lot of people think SIP is a magic bullet that somehow takes the risk out of an equity mutual fund, and that if you do a systematic investment plan for a long enough period of time, let's say 10 years, okay, and that is really what is called long period, then somehow there will be no risk. The issue with that statement is that although it is true, it hides a lot of variations. So it is true that if you were to say pick up the Nifty index, and if you did a 10-year investment in the Nifty index, 10 years systematic investment in the Nifty index, there is no 10-year SIP that would ever result in a loss. That I think is correct. What that hides, though, is the fact that during that 10-year period, at least 98 to 99% of the time, that's literally 100%. A small sliver does not fit the bill, but otherwise, 98 to 99% of the time, your money will be in negative. You would have made a loss before at the end of 10 years finishing in a profit. But during that 10 years, invariably, you will face a period during which your capital is at a loss. And in as much as almost 1/3 of that cases, that capital loss occurs after 5 years of systematically investing in a 10-year SIP. So imagine you have agreed to invest 120 installments, and after 60 installments have been invested, you forget return, you still have a capital loss. Now that is true in about 1/3 of the cases if you look at past track record. You have to be prepared to grit your teeth, continue with that investment if eventually at the end of 10 years you want to have a good return. I think this very few people understand, and therefore, they feel like they have been conned somehow. Somehow people have told them systematic investment plan is a great way to reduce risk, and yet late into a 10-year SIP also, 5 years is long term for a lot of people. We call it medium term, but a lot of people think 5 years is long term. And even after 5 years systematic investment, 1/3 of the time they may find that they are in a loss, and therefore, they may feel that they have really been cheated. I think that is because their expectations have not been managed properly. I think if they were aware that this is a trough through which you have to go before you will achieve your objective, that if it was told to them and it was explained to them with data, I think that is something that is the role of advisors like us, media houses, to make sure that people have the right expectation from their investments.
Then, in your opinion, Harsh, why are a lot of people perhaps not doing SIPs? What do you want to tell us?
We won't say that it is not popular. I mean, I think March to 2021, we have had 9,000 crores added primarily to equity inflows through the systematic investment plan and primarily retail investors. So I don't think we can say it is not popular. I think what really is happening is that, one, I think it is taking time before we see consistency. We do see the SIP figures going up and down. Logically, people should not be dropping off when markets reduce or even when markets increase. I think SIP is the ability to keep investing. It works when you keep investing irrespective of the market. That is how that strategy works. I think for that to happen, it will still take some time. The point is, the way to make wealth is boring. It takes a huge amount of time. Making wealth through SIPs is about as exciting as watching a plant grow. But when the plant grows and gives fruits, okay, after that, that process becomes very, very useful. I think a lot of people are realizing it. So I won't say it's not popular, but definitely, I think a lot more people should be in there, and they are coming. So I think one more thing that is important with the SIP is, I think the whole focus of the SIP seems to be to get into a volatile asset class that goes up and down get into it systematically, do it slowly over a period of time. I think what it misses is that you must also get out systematically. And I think this was dramatically, this was shown most dramatically during the meltdown that occurred in March 2020, when the Nifty index lost about 30% plus in the space of just a month between Feb and March. It lost about 31, 32%. Anybody who was waiting and who had a goal in March and was waiting for that goal date to approach would have suddenly lost 1/3 of his investment. That is why, as important as it is to get in systematically, it is as important to get out systematically. And our advice, we call it tapering out. Systematic investment is tapering in. Systematic investment out is called tapering out. It is as important to taper out. And at least say if you have a 10-year goal, maybe 2 years before the goal, start tapering it out from equity into debt. And I think doing that is as important to have a good eventual investment outcome, investment return outcome, as it is to slowly invest. So slowly invest, keep investing, do not get disturbed by any ups and downs in the market, and slowly disinvest. I think that really is the mantra for creating wealth.
All right, Harsh, thank you so much for your time on the show. Completely out of time on today's episode. If you have any feedback for us, do get in touch. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.